Thanks so much for having me, Heidi, Nick, James, all you folks over there. Like I was saying before, I've not been to Philadelphia in a while, but if I do, I would love to come see you guys in the office sometime if you're in the MCT at that time. So my name is Asif Rehmani. I am from Visual SP, as I was saying before. The topic that I'm talking about today is a topic that I did the same exact thing when Nick and Heidi, both of you were in the room at Dynamics Con Live. Not this one, the last one, right, in San Antonio, which was increase Dynamics 365 CRM usage while decreasing support costs with contextualized support and training. It's pretty mouthful with a lot of stuff. It's a pretty important topic. It's near and dear to my heart. This is a topic that I have researched and I've done a lot of work on with many customers throughout the world, actually. Not just North America, but outside quite a bit. And the challenges, as well as the solution, remains the same. So let's dig into it. Just a little bit about me. I'm from Chicago, as I was saying before. Company Visual SP. And the things that I'm talking about today is the thing that our company focuses on, I focus on as an individual. Visual SP, the product itself, is in the category of a digital adoption platform, which at the end of the day, it's all about increasing adoption of any application of any platform. And that's what we focus on. I've been a Microsoft MVP for quite some time. Really enjoy doing these kind of presentations and helping folks with any information that I can help with from my head. Been doing lots of conferences. A little tired of the conferences this year. I think it's been too many already. But it's like after COVID, they all came roaring back. It's been amazing how many conferences are happening these days. So, and back in the day, from 2007 and so forth, I used to write books before they became not cool anymore, at least as much. I think I'll get back into that, but not for specific topics that don't exist anymore, like SharePoint Designer. The whole tool is gone. So I'll be talking a lot more about evergreen topics in a book, hopefully. Here's my LinkedIn profile. If you want to connect with me, LinkedIn is the only network that I focus on. My email address and website address. So that's me in a nutshell. This is a very old version of me, by the way, so apologies that I don't look like that anymore. This is 2007. Yeah, I need to change my picture. All right. Agenda. Understand the challenges of supporting Dynamics users at their moment of need. We'll try to understand this a little bit deeper before we talk about the actual solution, which I very much believe is contextual learning and support. Being able to, in context, provide support and training to users when they're using the product. And that goes for Dynamics and goes for any other product too, actually, for that matter. Also understanding the pros and cons of this approach. So those of you who are listening to this right now and those who will listen to it in the recording later, before you jump into the things that I'm recommending, please understand both sides of what's awesome and what's some of the pain points that you will run across, and make your decision if it makes sense for you. There's also third-party approaches to accomplishing this exact same thing, but a lot more robustly. So I'll talk about that, including what our company does with Visual SP. All right, that's the agenda. I'm sure many people have seen this thing. It's very unfortunate, but very true that not just in Dynamics, but out in general, CRM projects many times fail to meet expectations. And most of the reason is user adoption, people not completely understanding what's in it for them and using it to their benefit. It just becomes a chore, which is not cool, unfortunately. CRMs are very customizable, of course, so it's always unique to a company. There is no off-the-shelf training, obviously, because things are always changing. And you can get some basic stuff, but you have to continually help your users. And users struggle when they have a question, any question, they need help. And of course, CRMs, just like any CRM, not just Dynamics, but Salesforce, HubSpot, and others continue to evolve, and things are changing all the time. So here's what I see. when I talk to end customers as well as consultants who are doing implementations. The internal team or a consulting team goes and implements the dynamics environment, right? Based on the need of a company. Then they have training that's conducted for future users. People are put into a room, either virtual or physical, told exactly here's what the environment is going to look like, here's where you're going to make leads, make contacts, make accounts, how you progress them to different stages, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're lucky, all that stuff is recorded, some PDF is created, some PowerPoint is created, some additional knowledge hub, maybe an LMS, and that's put out there somewhere for you to find when you need it. That's the usual thing that I see. Problem, of course, is that things are changing all the time. So what you've learned, most probably you won't even remember, unfortunately, and then things are changing before you can even use it. So supporting and training users continuously always is a big challenge for administrators. And when a person sitting out there, let's say someone in the room was talking about your headquarters in Chicago, but you're completely remote, right? And let's say if you're a salesperson and you're sitting remote, here's what usually happens. You are looking at an interface, and this goes for any interface. First, you look on the interface if you have the help for the question you're looking for, help on. If you don't find it, you look at documents or info you have on hand, maybe on your desk, maybe somewhere on your computer or on the intranet. You search on the web, but honestly, if you're searching for, and I'm going to give examples of this exactly, but when you're searching for something on the web, it's not going to give you your company-based information. It's just going to give you generic information, which doesn't help many times. Or you ask a colleague, excuse me, my voice is breaking. Excuse me. You ask a colleague or you ask a manager or somebody, hey, I need help on this thing. Can you help me do this? Or if none of these things work, then you just give up. You go back to a spreadsheet or something else that you were using before, and you just start doing things there with the great intention of coming back to the CRM or Dynamics to put the information back there that you were looking to change. But it doesn't happen. If you start making notes and other kind of things outside of Dynamics, more often than not, you're never going to return to it. You're not going to trust the system. It's just what I've seen. And that happens with any system, not just Dynamics. So this is the big challenge. And whenever you're, as a user, looking for information outside somewhere, whether it's an LMS, SharePoint, or you're asking a colleague, there's something that's happening that's the concept of switching context, right? You're switching context from what you were working on, and now you're going to somewhere or to someone to find your answer. And the problem with that, and if you download the slide deck, by the way, there's notes in there referring to exactly where this figure is coming from, that there's a huge drop in productivity, 40%, up to 40%. And that's pretty big. We don't want our users to have that. We want them to just accomplish their task. So less info, if you can provide them in context when they are actually doing their job, is so much better than out of context information. I say this as a trainer for a long time who has created tons of content that did not get used because when you put it out there on a wiki site or LMS or whatever, it's few extra clicks to get there. Unfortunately, people are not motivated to go somewhere. You want to provide them information in context of their environment. So the concept around this is contextual microlearning, contextual micro support, contextual micro communication, just anything and everything in context of the user's environment. When you bring context to the content, then the story changes completely. That I can say from tons of experience now researching and working with customers around the world. So having said all of that, hopefully you're following everything that I've been saying so far. There's a concept that I'm going to show you, but before actually I show you this concept or exactly how to enable it, I'm going to show you what the current experience is first. Any questions so far, by the way? All good so far from the room?
Yes,
Everybody's
all good.
okay. Okay. We want to make sure everybody's awake also. Okay. So I'm focusing on Dynamics 365 CRM, also referred to as CE, or other acronyms these days. No one's sure anymore, as Heidi will attest to, like to where Microsoft is going with all this wording. But it's a CRM at the end of the day, right? Now, Dynamics CRM, Dynamics BC, and any other web application, there's a lot going on in the interface always. And when a user comes to an interface like this is what I was talking about before. They have questions, and I want to give you some specific scenarios here that I've seen a lot. First question: I'm looking at accounts, and I'm new to this. Maybe I'm coming in from HubSpot, and I see that this annual revenue right now projection is 6.7 million. Okay, great. Now, as a user, I want to change this thing because the revenue projection has changed to 7 million, which is great. I need to change this figure, and I'm clicking over here, and I don't know how to do it. That's frustrating for me as a user. And I go down over here to see, is the annual revenue here somewhere? Nope, it's nowhere. So I need to change this thing. How do I change it? I don't know. So you know what I do? Maybe I call Heidi. Maybe I call somebody and say, hey, can you help me with this thing? I can't figure it out. Maybe Heidi is not available. What do you do then? Then you start looking on the web maybe. Okay, let's say annual revenue change, and hopefully you know that you're in Dynamics. Hopefully you know that you're in Dynamics 365 CRM or CE. So then, okay, opportunities and calculating revenue, recalculate. Oh, this is for Microsoft. They should know what I need. Let's click on that. I don't know what they're saying over here. Okay, so as a user, I'm already confused. It's something simple that I need to change, but I don't know how to do it. Maybe I go back to where I was before, which was right here. And maybe I try the question mark. See the question mark up here? No. Let's see what this does. I click on the question mark. It takes me to what's called Microsoft Dynamics 365 documentation. Once again, hopefully I'm a user that knows that I'm in the sales application. Most of the time, that's not going to be the case. So I'm already confused as to where I need to go. Business Central, Commerce, Customer Insights. Maybe if I do know, I'm in sales. So I come over here, it says sales. I don't know which version I have. Fine, I'll click on documentation. Oh, another page. Hopefully you see and can feel the frustration building up in a user's mind. No knock on Microsoft here, because I've been aligned with Microsoft personally also for a very, very long time. But this experience is not cool. Okay, it's when people see this, they get turned off. It's either Google search or talking to a colleague or going back to old ways of doing things. No one's going to go down this route over here. So having said all that, how do we reduce or eliminate this frustration altogether? Well, there is a concept. Let's see. Going back a little bit. Enable custom help panes and guided tasks functionality. I don't know why, but many people don't even know about this thing, that it exists. Once you do find out about this thing, it's hard to forget about it because it helps quite a bit. It's a fairly simple thing to do. You go to settings, advanced settings, you go in settings and administration. From system settings here, there's a place called, here we go, enable custom help panes and guided tasks. Now, this takes a few minutes to do, so I'm not gonna do it right now in the environment. I already have it done in one of the environments. And I'm just going to show you that when you enable this functionality of custom help panes and guided tasks, what happens and how the experience changes. Very simple to make that change. Once you've made that change, here's what happens. Okay, so I am in, I think this is the best place. Now, I'm in Power Apps right now, but it's the same kind of experience, model-driven app, Dynamics, Power Apps, either way. What I see as a user or as an admin at this point right now, when I've changed this thing, is when I click on the question mark, I get this either a blank pane or some links over here to help in with specific information that's specific to activities. Your experience might differ depending on the actual table you're in. Having said that, it's very different from what we saw before. Now it's a help pane that comes right here on the right. Here I can click on edit and start editing and putting information here that's related to the context I'm in. So remember, please, that this information is going to be specific to the table I'm in right now. So I'll go in here and say, you know what, I am looking to define some information about activities. So we'll say activities help. And here, activities is kind of like your to-do list. As a, let's say we're talking to a salesperson, so as a salesperson. So you put that information in there, we save it. And now next time a person comes, click on the question mark, they see this. Now, obviously this is not as helpful yet, bear with me. But this is very contextual in nature, is talking about activities, which is a table I'm in right now. Okay, now let's go beyond and make some cool stuff over here. Edit. First thing I'm going to do is put in some information that I know everybody needs. For example, I get this question a lot, not me personally. Let's say I, as an admin, gets this question a lot that, hey, how do I see the activities by month due? And you see that by clicking on show chart. But I get this question again and again, the exact same thing, and people forget. So I want to point to this show chart thing. I'm going to go here and use a functionality, which is right here, called coach marks. Okay. Once again, let me keep this open as an admin so I can see it. Activities by month. Yeah, activities by month. When you want to see activities by month due, click here. And then this click here wording right here, I'll make that into a coach mark, as I was saying, by dragging this to the show chart element. So now this coach mark, I've dragged this to an element. It's got the blue border there showing this is what I've dragged to. And this can happen with any element on the page, by the way. Click on insert, click on save. And now next time somebody comes here, once again, the experience being I'm in activities, I click on the question mark. It says when you want to see activities by month due, click here. I click on click here, and now it's actually pointing to the show chart functionality. Right, this is a coach mark.
Sorry, there's a question in the chat. Mary said this is super cool, but she missed where it came from. Is it new AI stuff?
This is not AI, and no, it's not new either. It's actually been there for a long time, but most people still have not heard of it or seen it. The functionality is called custom help panes and guided tasks. And it's in your system settings. You can set the enable custom help panes and guided tasks for the question mark now to act in the way that it's acting right now instead of sending you to documentation. Yeah. Heidi, I can also send you a link to this slide deck afterwards if you want, so people have. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, but this is what you have to remember.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I just thought others might have the same question.
It's actually better to have these questions instead of just me going on and on, wondering if you guys are still there. The room is empty. Okay. So that's the coach mark functionality, which once again is pretty cool. As I was saying before, I personally very much believe that even if you provide one or two pieces of information, which is specific to the environment you're in, that's a lot better than the default question mark, which just sends you to that documentation that you're never going to look at. Okay. But there's more. There's also more good stuff that I want to show you here. I go back into edit and say, no, I have something else over here that I want people to know about, and that's this ellipsis, which people ask me all the time. I need to export a list of whatever table items that I'm looking at, in this case, activities. And I always tell them, go into the ellipsis, click on export to Excel. It's the exact same question all the time. So let me point them to this. Instead of a coach mark, I'm going to use something else. That's called a balloon right here. That's what this is pointing to. The other two different ways I've seen the balloon being referred to is a walkthrough or a dialogue. Okay, or of course you can call it a tooltip as well, like that. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say to export to, or how about this? Learn how to export to Excel. And then the learn part right here, I'm going to take this, click on insert balloon. Okay. This is a little bit different than Coachmark, still has the drag tone element, but it also has the title and details of the actual balloon, the tooltip that's going to show up. First thing, I'll drag this also to the element, which is this guy right here. Then in title, I'm going to say export to Excel. And details, I'm going to put in the information that people need to know, which is click on these. I would call it an ellipsis or something, but people might not know what that is, so I'll just refer to that as 3 dots. And then select export to Excel. Okay, title, details, insert. Here's what it looks like. I'll save it. Once again, someone clicks on the question mark when their activities. They come here. It says learn how to export to Excel, and I do want to know how to do that. Click on it, and now this time a balloon shows up. Export to Excel. Click on these 3 dots and then select export to Excel. So I click on it, and here we go. And it still remains on the screen. So it's there for me until I'm done with my task, which is also very helpful for a user who doesn't want to go back and forth looking at something and coming back here. So these are all very specific user-centric tricks and tips that you want them to get to the information they need within a couple of clicks, within 10 seconds. And if you can accomplish something like this within 2 clicks, within 10 seconds, you have the user hooked into doing more of these self-serve type of exploration and learning the system instead of them having to call, once again, Heidi or somebody like that, right? Not trying to take a job, Heidi. I know I still want people to call you, but this is all tier 0.5 to tier 1 to sometimes even 1.5 and maybe even 2 kind of things that you want people to just have the answers to right away. Now, the cool thing is, doesn't matter where they are, the information they get is going to be always contextual in nature. So I have activities open. I also have accounts open over here. And if I go to accounts as a user, now I click on the question mark. The pane that comes in over here, the help pane, is very, very different. This, in this case, has my company's logo, let's say, and it's got some additional information here. And this is all for accounts help, right? I go into edit. This specific thing right here is an image. So the ability to add an image is there as well, right here. That's for the image. This is for a video. Oops. Yeah. Sorry, here we go. This is a video right there. This is an image. And you also have section. This is the coach mark we talked about, the balloon, links, and of course the bulleted list, numbered list. So lots of different opportunities for you to put in whatever kind of information you want to put in into this help pane to help your users. You know what your users the best. Let me go out and say discard the changes. Okay, so I got the image, which is not clickable. It's just an image for branding, but let's see what this does. View all accounts by industry by clicking on show chart. So click on that. Same thing as I was showing before. In this case, it's pointing to show chart. Of course, in accounts, when I click on show chart, which it's not working for some reason, that's weird. Here we go, finally worked. It's showing accounts by industry. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then
question.
Yeah.
Asif, we got a question.
Yeah.
Is this functionality available across the entire Power Apps platform, meaning Power BI service, or is it only in the Dynamics 365 and a custom model-driven apps like this?
So the question is it available throughout the Power Platform, right?
Yes.
And the answer, no, it's not. It's available only in the Power Apps model-driven apps and available in Dynamics CRM, specifically Dynamics CE. So customer service, project, field service, sales, marketing, all that stuff. It's not available in BC. It's not available in FNO. It is a very scoped version of the help panes that they've made, that Microsoft has made. So it's not available everywhere. No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Now, of course, there is a solution that something like this could be available everywhere, but that is a paid solution. That's something I'll be talking about at the end also. So same type of functionality, companies like ours and others have taken to a way beyond a different level and having this available everywhere, but that is going to be a paid solution. For Microsoft, they stopped at Dynamics CRM and Power Apps. Okay. Learning how to sort and filter your accounts. So in this particular case, I as a admin have put in a video. Now this video is coming from YouTube. I click on the video, it plays right there. I can maximize it also and see it. The resolution does get better after it's playing for a few seconds. But once again, I can insert video, I can insert images, I can insert coach marks, all kinds of information you can insert in the help pane, just have it available right there for the user when they need it. There are some caveats I want to be aware of, and this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to be talking about. I talk about the good and the not so good, so you get both perspectives here. For example, if I'm here, I guess depends on how you look at it, if it's good or not. If I go to contacts, that still stays there and is showing me information about accounts. It doesn't change unless I click on the X, then I click on the question mark again, and now it's going to show me the context help, which I had also previously built with some additional information here. So if you do go down this route, please remember this caveat as well. Now, having said that, in addition to things I've shown you, you can put information here that pertains to anything you want users to know about, including things outside of Dynamics or Power Apps. So for example, I want people to know how to get to their benefits portal. So I have a link over here to the benefits portal. When they click on this, in this case, they're going to a SharePoint site, which is talking about their benefits, etc. And all that stuff is available by editing, by going in and by just changing these things around. So in this case, if I click on edit, this happens to be a coach mark. Okay, cool. If I click on benefits portal, click on edit, this is a regular link, which is just linking to a location. I want to put a new link, easy to do. Once again, you insert a link. All if you know how to do that, obviously, very simple to do. And just easy for me to guide my users wherever they are, right? Another really cool thing, I can take all this information, I can copy and paste. So I can just do a Control-C. I won't save it, but I'll go in here and I'll at least show you that if I want to just replace this stuff right here, edit, Control-A, Control-V, and boom. So I can just copy and paste across the different entities, the different tables as well if I wanted to. Very easy to do. And it's all getting stored into a solution in the back end, so I can take the whole solution that I built out in a dev environment, take it to a production environment, and so forth. There's documentation on how to do that as well. Yeah. Once again, concluding this particular demo, letting you know, I think this is a great functionality. Most people don't know about this thing. If you do know about it, it's hard to forget about it because it just makes it so much simpler for users to just click on the question mark, which I know many people are kind of like, I don't know, it never helps me, but it can help them if you provide them this functionality. All right. Caveats and other things you should know about. Let me talk about those things as well. So we talked about it, enable it, give you a live demo. Excuse me. There are limitations, I should say, of custom help panes and guided tasks functionality that I've been showing. And this is the kind of stuff that you do want to know before jumping into it. I've been talking to Microsoft for most of my career in one form or another. So I know a lot of people in different places, and I've talked about this particular functionality with a lot of Microsoft folks. They don't even know about it. No offense, Microsoft. It's just many of them. It's like, what's going on? I thought Microsoft folks would know about it, but it's just not out there as much. I've tried to get some official support for custom help panes and guided tasks, and I had a difficult time getting it for a customer who was asking about it. So please do know your mileage may vary, but it's not as officially supported as other stuff in the Microsoft ecosystem. The images and video integration has some bugs. It's been around the same exact bugs for a year and a half or more that I've seen. I've not seen it being fixed. For example, the video YouTube functionality, there is a functionality in there that says do not let people maximize the video, and click on it to not let people maximize, but it still lets them do it. So simple small annoyances like that, which I'm not seeing any fixes for. So please remember that. Also, some elements on the page don't work with the balloons and coach marks. Most of them do, but some of them, especially the custom entities and custom columns and things like that, sometimes you just cannot select it. And I don't have a good answer for why that's happening and if that's going to change in the future, but that is the case. There's no way to implement multi-step guided walkthroughs. So those the balloons that you can do, there are of course other ways you can have multiple steps in there, but for this functionality, you cannot have multiple steps. It's just going to be one balloon right there. There's no way to draft items. So if you do go this route, which I would definitely recommend from current default functionality, I think I would recommend everybody to do this at least. But please remember that if you go into the help pane, you customize the content, you click on save, it's going to be immediately available to everybody who can see that particular interface when they click on the question mark. There's no draft and then publish afterwards. No customization and branding options. So that blue balloon or the blue coach mark is still going to remain blue. You cannot customize that at all. And also there's no way to target specific items. So to say, customer service personnel should see this, while the sales folks should see that, while the sales managers should see that. Everybody's going to see everything that you put in there. That's how it's going to be there.
Asif,
Yeah.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Are these everything that you implement for your custom help panes, all of the different assets that you're creating, that's unique to one model-driven app, is that correct?
Yes.
So if I do it in the Sales Hub, and then I make a custom app for a separate user group, none of that will carry through.
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
It is specific to the application. Yeah. That was a question, right?
Oh, that was my next question, Nick.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll ask it if you want. Is it solution aware? Like, can I develop these things on Sandbox, package them up, and have it go over to production?
I have not tried that specifically, but there is documentation on you being able to do that. So it is solution specific. Yeah, you can package it and deploy it from a dev to production or environment to environment.
Okay. Awesome.
Absolutely. That's where you come in, Nick.
Yeah,
more technical folks. Yeah.
I like the technical stuff.
Yeah. I used to be a developer in my past life, long time ago, but I don't go that deep anymore. So, so bottom line for this functionality, I can bet folks in the room right now and some on the others, of course, who have seen me talk about this, but others who have not seen this thing, you're blown away with some of the stuff like, oh, wow, I wish I knew that this existed before. I felt the exact same way, many years back when I first found out about this functionality, thinking, why is Microsoft not publicizing it more? So every time I talk to any Microsoft folks, especially in the Dynamics environment, I say, hey, you gotta let people know, that this thing exists, because this is awesome. It's a great first start from going from where the default is, which, sorry, but it's not helpful. The default question mark functionality, the way it is right now, it's great for admins. It's not for users. And admins will not be clicking on that question mark. It's actually going to be users who are going to be clicking on it. That's just a fact. And for users, if it's not helpful, let's replace it with something else. There is one additional thing you can do, by the way, which I've seen many companies do. So in addition to the custom help panes functionality, you can have the question mark going to a support site of your choosing. So they click on it, a new tab opens up, and they get to a, I don't know, a SharePoint site or the LMS or something, which is going to be truly helpful. So that's another option that you have. Whichever option you choose, my recommendation always to people is do something. You don't want your users to be confused this way. Now I got about 10, 11 minutes over here. I am going to talk about the third-party solution as well. This is not really to push a specific product, but it's just to help you understand that there are other ways if you get to a point where you want to get deeper in this functionality and there's funding available, then you can have a company like ours or other companies like that take this thing to a huge new level of providing contextual support and assistance to your users. So let me actually show you what we do on here. So I can, actually this one is a good one. Okay, so we were over here before, had this question mark. We're going to replace the question mark in a different way now. I'm going to close this thing over here. Do one more thing on the right side here. Okay. Let's say, once again, I'm in the lead screen or account screen, whatever, of my CRM. Now it's going to be a very different experience for my user. Here we go. It's loaded finally. If I'm struggling as a user in CRM and I want, well, let me actually back up over here. As an admin, I want my users to have the support they need, once again, at their moment of need. And with a system, a digital adoption system like Visual SP that we have and others like that, you can actually change the environment in such a way where they have the answers at their moment of need right there. For example, you can see over here it says CRM support. It looks like a link that was always there and it's part of Dynamics CRM, but it's not. It's driven by, in this case, the digital adoption platform. So as a user, I click on this CRM support and it's showing me my company's logo. It's showing, hey, if you want answers or guidance for your CRM, click on this, check it out. Answers, go to the answers community, open up a ticket. And all these things are just rich HTML that's been configured using a digital adoption platform. Here's the actual configuration of that. So you see over here, it says need help. That's the platform. And this thing, which was just get help, is this guy right here. Just want to show you how this is configured. Here's the actual content. Right, very simple. Completely textual content or buttons or images. I put that in. I go in, say enable inline help, and I select a place where I want this link to be. So I'm just moving around. This was how it was before. Now I'm just putting a different location. And I can change that to whatever I want it to be, CRM support or whatever. And once I'm done, it's just going to work. It's pretty simple. Now I have my users clicking on a link that's on their interface, contextualize to get the answers they need. Another example, I was showing you before the annual revenue frustration from a user. So let's say, just like I was showing a balloon before, I want to make these balloons, but I want to make it a little bit more powerful than what Microsoft provides with custom help panes. I make what's called a help item. Here's going to be my help item. Currently, it's just in the middle, just a splash screen. I want to make this point to this because this is where you go to make the change of annual revenue. Right? So in here, I'm going to go and say, instead of a splash screen, don't worry about the exact places I'm clicking over here. It's more about the idea. You select an element on the page, in this case, this downward caret, this arrow, and I want to point to that. I want to tell people change revenue from here. I can change the image, the information, blah, blah, blah over here. And I'm going to say, let's have this actual dialogue come at the left of that. of the arrow, and then add a highlight, yellow, that's fine. So by doing some of these steps that I just did right now, it's pointing over there saying, hey, here's where you go to change the revenue. What it looks like in once it's all said and done is something like this. As a user, once again, I'm struggling. How do I change revenue? I go into where it says need help. I do a search for revenue. It says adjust annual revenue. I click on this. It points, simple dialog in this screen. Second thing, it points over here. So it's pointed a first step, second step right there. And that's the multi-step walkthrough, completely contextualized, branded to the customer. This kind of stuff is something that we've been talking about as a company. I've been talking about as an individual for quite some long time. This is where the industry is headed. You want people to have the information directly in the context of their environment using these kinds of coach marks or inline help is what we call it, or balloons or walkthroughs, whatever you want to call it. But it's right there, right in your environment. Show you one more quick thing over here. All right, so people all the time coming in here are wondering, do I make a lead or do I make a contact? That happens a lot also, especially from people who are coming from a CRM that only had contacts. So now I put a inline help icon right there. When they hover over it, it says a lead is not the same as a contact. It is an individual who does not have an opportunity associated with it, et cetera, et cetera. Even some videos associated with that, put it here. So it's right there for them to watch and understand exactly what leads versus contacts is all about. I know which one do I make as a salesperson. And having that answer at my moment of need in context of my environment, and in the flow of my work right there is the way to increase usage of your environment, giving them the answers right there and reducing your support tickets. So of course, what I've been showing over here is a paid solution called the Visual SP Help System. There's a free solution from Microsoft, the custom help panes. Whichever you do, it's better to do something rather than do nothing, is what I tell people. Because currently the way it is right now is not really useful with the question mark. So good luck to you folks. Just wanted to make sure I make these points in this in this presentation. And yeah, since I'm almost out here at the end of the time, this is the next steps. If you want to talk more about these things, here's my email address. Start with something like custom help panes and guided tasks to support your users. They will thank you for it for sure. Or of course, you can do a trial of Visual SP as well, which is to take it to the next level. And that's about it. Wanted to keep it short. Hopefully this was in time, Heidi.
Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks for showing us all these out-of-the-box tooling that we can use to help with user adoption. I love it. Does anyone have any questions for Asif?
Asif, have you ever used WalkMe?
Yeah.
For these kinds of purposes? How does that match? I haven't used it, but it's a tool that I hear referenced.
Yeah.
How does that match up?
So in all transparency, WalkMe is our competitor. WalkMe is a great tool, actually. They focus a lot more on Salesforce and other side of things. Don't have a great integration with Dynamics. Good integration, but not a great integration. It matches actually pretty perfectly with what I've been showing over here. WalkMe also lets you make walkthroughs, which guide you functionality. What we do with Visual SP is we take it a step beyond within Dynamics specifically, that you can actually point to specific things and say only these people, like salespeople and others, can see it. So we understand the security and the scopes a lot better than what WalkMe can do within Dynamics. But the concept remains the same. They do a really good job of this exact same thing in Salesforce.
Okay. And with Visual SP, you just have better integration directly with Dynamics.
You got it.
Sales, security roles, those types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Anything else? Thanks, Asif. Really appreciate you joining our user group, teaching us all this
Absolutely.
great stuff. Thank you.
Been my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Asif.
Jamie, I wonder what we're going to learn about an
All
AI.
right, me too.
I'm turning my camera off, but I'm still here, just FYI.
Awesome.
Yeah, now on the big screen is Nick and Heidi. There you go.
Everyone else turn the cameras.
So. Um,
Bless you.
do that. Not going. All right. So, share the screen.
We're seeing that.
You're seeing the screen?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, good. That's what I want. Awesome. Teams display looks funky. Okay, cool. So, so talking a little bit about AI, and we can definitely just entertain questions along the way here, because this whole topic around artificial intelligence, the way Microsoft is bringing these capabilities that we're calling Copilot to the table. This Copilot capability is baked into everything, and you guys have probably heard all kinds of different and seen videos and demonstrations of different kinds of Copilot capabilities. So we could have a conversation about artificial intelligence all day long, and in fact, that is one of the things that we do here at the MTC. We get all 5 of the architects here together for an entire day to talk with customers about artificial intelligence in general and how we're bringing all this stuff from the ground up to all of our cloud-based products. What I went to do, and I heard somebody ask the question around, how does this help my as a salesperson, right? How does this help my salespeople using artificial intelligence? So I'm going to start just kind of talking a little bit about what we've done. Where did that go? Sorry. Okay. Just kind of talking a little bit about some of the things that we're doing with what we call Viva Sales to specifically help sales folks. This is not awesome. Let me make this a little bit smaller so we can get a better view of what's going on here. Okay, so I'm going to go through this real quick because we talked about it last time that we talked about AI. But the idea around this is Viva Sales is an add-in to Outlook. And you can connect Viva Sales to either your Dynamics implementation or your Salesforce implementation. In this regard, we don't really care what CRM you're using. It's more about how we can create capabilities for your sales users that are typically spending their day in Outlook. So in this scenario that I have here is I got an email from a customer, and they're asking about a proposal for an opportunity that we've been talking about. So as a sales rep, I see that email, and there's a couple things that I can do here. I have Viva Sales open all the time. And one of the things that Viva Sales does is, number one, it's because I'm connected to Dynamics 365, it knows who this customer is, right? It already knows the contact. I have some information. I can pop open that contact record from Dynamics if I want to. It's also listing for me the opportunities that we've been talking about. So the opportunities that I have in Dynamics gives me a link to the directly to the account record that this customer is tied to. So I get a lot of that information directly from Dynamics right here in Viva Sales. But now one of the things that I can do is I can ask Copilot, I can ask Viva Sales to draft an email response for me for this particular proposal. So if I say make a proposal, it'll start to generate this email for me. Now, one of the things it's doing, and this is something that Asif mentioned in his discussion very early on, is the idea of people having to sort of swivel chair, right? Bounce between applications and change their context. I know one of the things that happens to me is when I sit down and I start drafting an email response when customers send me questions, I get like 5 different things bouncing around in my head. The hardest thing to do is get started in drafting that email. So one of the nice things that Viva Sales brings to the table and Copilot in general is, one, to get me started on that email. 2, what Viva Sales is doing is it's saying, hey, I can generate this email for you. And oh, by the way, I know that you're working on an opportunity with this customer. So I can go grab some of that opportunity related data out of your CRM system and use that in the email. So it knows that I have this opportunity for a Cafe Grande coffee machine, blah, blah, blah. But what's weird is in the email, my customer referenced XR coffee machines. So it didn't go grab the right opportunity. Well, that's okay. I can come down here and say, hey, I want to change the opportunity that we're talking about here. And it's really this one. And go create a new draft. So now what it's going to do is it's letting me pick some of the specifics and then go and draft that email for me. And once I see that, now it's something that I can read through. I can get back to thinking about what are the things that I want to get across to this customer. Yes, this email is drafted. It's got the right information, so on and so forth. But I also remember like, oh, there was one other point that I wanted to tell this customer about. So now I can add that into the email. I can tweak things. I can make sure I'm covering all the different points that I want to cover in this email. And so I can get that done much more quickly. And I didn't have to change context and go over to my Dynamics, my CRM system. The other thing that it's going to do here is give me a link to references, right? So it's going to give me the ability to see where it got this information from, these citations. This is something that's relatively new that we just added into this capability because it's becoming more and more important. It kind of gets back to, I don't remember who mentioned it at the very beginning of our day today. It may have been Asif, around, how do I know that the information that's being generated is correct, right? And frankly, there's no one right answer to that. One of the things that the citations do, though, is help us understand where that information came from. So that piece is really, really important. So I can take this, I can, if I had already created a reply to this email, I would be able to just push this text from the email right over into my email reply. I didn't do that, so in this case, I could just copy the text. The other thing that the Copilot did is it says, hey, do you want to have a meeting on the 3rd at 8 a.m.? Where did that come from? Using Copilot under the covers, and this is what Microsoft Copilot is really all about. It's using the Microsoft Graph to go look at my calendar availability and come back with my next availability, right? So it's not just throwing out a date and a time out of the blue. It's going and looking at my calendar. Now, how does it do that? What are the security implications? Keep in mind that what it's doing is using the Microsoft Graph under the covers, which is secured with your Office 365 credentials. So when you go into Office 365, when you go into Outlook, you're logging in with your Azure AD credentials. So you have access to your OneDrive, the documents in your OneDrive. You have access to your Outlook calendar. You have access to your emails, all that good stuff. That's what Microsoft Graph is doing under the covers. Those services are utilizing your Azure AD credentials to access your data, the data that you have access to. So why do I bring that up? Because when we go a little bit deeper into the topic of Copilot in general, and we start to talk about Microsoft 365 Copilot, a lot of people get worried about, oh, you know, it's going to take my business data that's coming out of documents. It's going to expose my business data, right? That's not happening here. What's happening under the covers from a Microsoft AI perspective is we're utilizing a large language model that was created by OpenAI. It's the same large language model that is underneath ChatGPT. But here's what we need to understand, and this is where I see a lot of misinformation across the board, because we just don't understand how these things work yet. What Microsoft is doing is we're taking the large language model that OpenAI created, and we're essentially creating a copy of that and deploying it in our Azure cloud. We're deploying it as a secured service within Microsoft Azure. Okay, and so what that means is, if we think about Office 365, and Office 365 is a SaaS service, right? It's Word and PowerPoint and Outlook and OneDrive and SharePoint and all of those things that are part of your Office 365 subscription. That is a SaaS service. You log into it with your Azure AD credentials. It gives you access to your data, your documents. The Copilot capability, that large language model, that generative AI capability becomes part of that SaaS service. And so when we start to say, well, how does Viva Sales know to go to my Dynamics environment, for example? Well, I configured it that way, right? Well, I set up Viva Sales, I configure it to link to my Dynamics implementation. It's using my Azure AD credentials to do that. Therefore, it's limiting access to data that I have access to. If Heidi and I are salespeople working in the same organization, but our security roles say that we're not allowed to see each other's data, Viva Sales won't be bringing back opportunities that Heidi's working on because I don't have access to them. Right? So the business data that we're talking about that is secured with your Azure AD credentials, it remains secured by your Azure AD credentials. That data is not going to OpenAI. It's not going to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a chat-based user interface that OpenAI built over top of their large language model. And so OpenAI is doing whatever they want to do with the information that you're sending in through ChatGPT. That's not what Microsoft does, right? Microsoft is not using ChatGPT under the covers. We're using the large language model, right? The massive training that's been done to create that large language model. We're using that. We're using a copy of that as part of the Microsoft Office 365 SaaS service. Okay. The same thing happens when we start getting into, Azure cloud architecture in general. In your Azure tenant, you can provision your own instance of Azure OpenAI. What that is a security wrapped instance of the OpenAI large language model that you can access through APIs. That's not ChatGPT. You can create your own chatbot on top of that, right? But it's not ChatGPT, right? So we have to make that distinction. So within Viva Sales, within Copilot, within 365 Copilot, any of the information that we're accessing, it's secured with your Azure AD credentials. Some of the demos that you may have seen around M365 capabilities, things like if I had a meeting with this customer, and I did this a while back. So here's another scenario. Viva Sales shows up in Teams. So if I needed to go talk with one of my colleagues through Teams about a particular activity in Dynamics, I can use Viva Sales to go reference those Dynamics elements, right? That's where this message came from. So using Viva Sales, I was able to pull up this opportunity, and I was able to ask Stan a question about, hey, you know, are we going to be able to provide the customer the units that they ordered in the shorter time frame that they're asking for, right? So I can go ask him that question, and I can include some of the information about that. Now, the reason I can do that is because, one, Stan has access to this in Dynamics as well. Okay. Two, Stan is part of my organization. Okay, I wouldn't be able to include this with someone outside of my organization because they don't have access to this data.
So you're not referring to giving access to a partner via your AD. If you did that, would that be considered within your organization?
Guest accounts, no.
Okay.
If I have a meeting with this customer, so this is one of the things that we did. When I set up the meeting, Teams is aware of Viva Sales also. So when we have this meeting, I can capture the transcript. I can capture highlights, action items, all of those different types of things show up in this list, right? So it starts pulling things out. There was a question about, you know, whether the coffee machine capsules are recyclable, and I can jump right to where that question was asked in the transcript. We can get lots of different information about the transcript. I can get some information about the sentiment throughout the conversation, all kinds of different details about specific key items and people that were discussed, key questions that were asked. All of that information shows up here. That's all baked into Viva Sales. If you are a Dynamics customer, you already have access to Viva Sales as part of your Dynamics license. The other thing that I can do then is, because we recorded that conversation, I might want to, when I'm in Viva Sales, I might want to send an email to my customer to say, hey, summarize a sales meeting. So Viva Sales knows that I had a meeting with this customer because it was on my calendar, and we can ask it to summarize that sales meeting, and it'll generate an email with some of the bullet points, action items, all that good stuff, because it knows how to summarize the text from the transcript of the meeting. So again, I can take this, I can make changes to it, I can tweak it, I can add additional points if I need to do that. And then I can go and send that email out to my customer. Okay, any questions on that? Because I think one of the things I wanted to do is jump into some of the AI capabilities that are baked into Power Platform, and there's a number of different ways that that conversation can go. I was also thinking about some things around the way the prompting works, right? How do we get the information generated from artificial intelligence? And again, and that starts to get to be a very technical conversation, but that's why I kind of wanted Heidi to ask that question earlier today around, you know, what is it that people are interested in? Let me grab this. So there are some things in Power Platform that I think you guys can start to take advantage of and play around with today. When you go into, let's try this. Is that too small in Teams? Are you guys able to see that? Does it look okay?
Well, that's a little small, but
Say again?
That's a little small, but
Is it a
okay.
little small? Sorry. Not used to dealing with this monitor. So when you go into the Maker portal, if you go in under AI models, and let me just do this, go under AI models and say new AI model. One of the things that, because we're in preview right now, you should have access to generative AI with GPT. And so if you try the preview, you'll get a screen like this, and you can start kind of dropping in your own prompts and so on and so forth. So there are some things here that we can start to play around with. The point here, though, is if you subscribe to AI Builder as part of Power Platform, you can start to use these models in your apps and flows. Copilot, and this is a little bit different than what we call Copilot. What this is doing is, again, think about Power Platform as a SaaS service, just like Office 365, right? You log in with your Azure AD credentials, and it gives you access to the environments, the apps, flows, and things that you have access to. So underneath, as part of Power Platform, there is an OpenAI service, and an Azure OpenAI service that's part of the Power Platform SaaS world, right? So with AI Builder, we can get access to those APIs that go to the Azure OpenAI service. And we do that in a simplified manner by using the Power Platform tools, right? These configurable application and automation creation tools. And that's what AI Builder gives us access to. So I can start to do some things like, I have a flow that I built for a scenario where we said, well, if a customer has an issue, a customer service problem, they could email our customer service email address, and we could have an automated process that kicks off when the email arrives, and start to break out that email a little bit. So one of the things I wanted to do here is, in my prompt, I'm telling the Azure OpenAI service to, one, identify the sentiment out of the text that came from the email. So I want the sentiment, the context of what the customer was talking about, and just kind of categorize it as positive, neutral, or negative. I also told it to identify possible causes for that sentiment. I asked it to extract product details and extract customer information, right? So here's an example of the email that I sent to myself. So this is generally the email, and it's kind of negative because I'm saying, hey, I bought this laptop, and this is the name of the laptop, and it runs very slowly, and I'm not very happy about this. And I signed the email, so I have some customer information in here. So when this flow runs, one of the things I'm doing here is I'm taking the body of the email, right? It's our standard Power Automate dynamic content. I'm taking the body of the email and saying, hey, here's the email content that I want you to evaluate. And then I go through a bunch of process here where I'm posting some cards in Teams and pulling all this information. But what I'm doing in these cards is, not only do I have some of the dynamic content from the email that came in, but I'm also using content from the GPT model. So in other words, the AI Builder action from earlier in the flow, I'm using some of the output from that to generate my message, because again, that's available to me as dynamic content. What I end up with is a message in Teams that is like this, right? So it was able to pull out customer information. It gave me the subject of the email, pulled out the customer information. It gave a sentiment analysis of negative, which my email was very negative. The product details, it understood where the product name was in the email that it was evaluating. and it started to pull out causes. Not causes for the actual problem, but causes for the negativity in the email. In other words, what is it that the customer was having a problem with? So that's all information that I was able to tell Azure OpenAI to summarize for me. And it was able to do that because of the prompting that I gave it in here. So why do I bring that up? Because everything that we do with Azure OpenAI and the information that we're going to want it to generate all has to do with the prompting. Most of what we're going to start learning how to do, especially folks on this call that are implementers, a lot of what we're going to be learning how to do is prompt engineering. We're going to be learning how to figure out how to get the right context into the large language model so that it can generate relevant responses. One of the key things to understand, we call a lot of this capability Copilot. It's a Copilot, it's not an autopilot. What the large language model does is it predicts the next word. That's what it does. And it does it over and over and over again. That's really all it does. It doesn't generate information. It doesn't predict information. Now the question starts to become, we've heard a lot of stories about, especially in the ChatGPT world, we've heard a lot of stories about, hallucinations and grabbing information that isn't relevant. I did an experiment where I asked Azure OpenAI to create a 3-paragraph bio for me. And it pulled all kinds of information. Apparently, there's another James D. Stento that lives in New York, probably is related to my family because there aren't many of us. Unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago, so it started pulling back information about my death, which was a little weird. So I don't know that I recommend doing that, but it was an interesting experiment. The point here is it's going out and it's grabbing information that has been indexed. It's grabbing public information because we didn't do any grounding. I didn't tell it what sources to use. I didn't give it context to be able to generate a response from it. In our example with Viva Sales, we gave it context, right? Copilot says, Jamie's logged in and I have his Azure AD credentials, and that gives Jamie access to certain records in Dynamics. So let's go figure out what records in Dynamics that Jamie has access to might be relevant to this question from a customer that we want to generate a response for. And so it pulls that information and uses that in the prompting to help the large language model have context for what it is that we want to ask. I'll give another example of this. Anybody have questions about this or like concerns? And this is just such a huge topic.
This is cool stuff. I
And
haven't seen it used that way.
We're all kind of learning along the way. And there's people that do this all the time. The engineering teams that are building these things are way ahead of our level of understanding here. So here's a scenario where we put a chatbot over top of, we created a chat interface over top of an Azure OpenAI instance, and we started to. And we gave that chatbot access to employee benefits information. So you could think about this like maybe it's an HR chatbot or something. So I can start to ask this chatbot some questions. And I'm gonna just try to copy paste some stuff here to make it go a little bit faster. But I can do some things like If I have a pre-existing condition that requires monthly prescriptions, is there a plan that's better for me? Now, let's see what kind of response we get back. So again, one of the things that we're telling this chatbot, the way that we're implementing this service is to say, well, I also want to make sure I get citations, right? So when an employee starts asking questions about our benefits plan, we want to include citations so that they can go right to the document that the information came from. It's a way for the employee to validate what the bot told it. It's also a way for the employee to go gather more information, right? More context. But the reason the bot is able to formulate an answer to this is because we gave it context. We gave it information as part of the prompt to say, hey, summarize some information about this based on the employee's question. That's what the large language models is able to do. If I start to do some things like, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, multi-language capability, right? So if I speak Spanish, I could get my response in Spanish. I speak French, I get it in French.
I'll show you an example of that because I was just playing around with some of this the other day. So one of the things that I'm going to do here is in this. So in this case, I'm in. I have an Azure OpenAI instance in my Azure tenant. So that I'm using Azure AI Studio to play around with some of these capabilities. So I changed the system message here. I essentially sort of changed the prompt here. And I said, hey, you're an AI assistant, helps people find information about football. You answer concisely and whatever information you know. If someone says a question related to anything else, say the word Yahtzee. So now I could do some things like who won the first Super Bowl and what was the score? So it knows that the Packers won in 1967. It knows what the score was. It knows that because it was trained with that data. Okay. If I say who won the last Super Bowl and what was the score? He thinks the Bucks won in 2021 because that's the last time it was trained with actual data. That's all the information that it has. It doesn't know anything about the Super Bowl in 2022 or 2023.
It's okay, we can forget.
Right. I know.
I enjoyed
It's a little bit of a painful memory for us. But the point is,
Doesn't bother me at all, actually.
It doesn't have that information. Now, if I were to go to, sorry, I didn't open this up earlier. I should have already had this open.
I just understand how
could
this will
go
help me win my
to-
fantasy football league. That's all I care about. Who's going to be the top producers this upcoming weekend? That's all I care about. I don't care about what's in the past.
I could go grab all this information. Copy that. Now come back to my chatbot and I can say here, this is what you know. And just paste all that stuff in, right? No formatting. I don't care about formatting. I don't care about anything. Now I can say, who
Copy paste.
I know. And three.
You didn't copy the last row of data. I thought
That's-
you were doing that on purpose. I want to see the.
No, did I miss that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, let me do this. So again, it doesn't know because we didn't tell it. But remember that it thought the last one was 2021. Now, if we ask it about 2022, it's going to come back and it knows the information about 2022, which it didn't know before because we gave it that context. the point here is that the OpenAI model is not predicting information. It's not, what it's doing is predicting a series of words. It's a language model. It's not an information model. And so we have to give it context. This is similar to what M365 Copilot is going to do for you. So you have Office 365 as part of your corporate subscription, and you also add Copilot to your subscription. When we provision that Copilot service, one of the things that it's going to do in the background is rip through documents that are in your Office 365 repositories. So things like SharePoint sites, OneDrive, all that stuff, right? It's all SharePoint underneath anyway. Rip through those documents and create a semantic index, right? A semantic database. It's going to index the content from your documents. So think cognitive search, which is a service that we already have in Azure. It's basically doing the same thing, creating a semantic database, a semantic index based on all of your documents. So now when you start asking questions, you want to create, I go into Microsoft Word, for example.
Does it search password protected documents?
It is. Does it search password protected documents? So yes, Copilot, the Copilot service under the covers, when it's creating that semantic indexing, yes, it's searching everything. When I, as a user, go and ask questions about things, I'm only getting access to the data and the documents that I have access to. So the security is user-based when I'm accessing the context of that content. Okay, Copilot is not, the Copilot semantic database behind the scenes is not user specific. It is organization specific. But as a user, I'm only going to get content that I have access to.
So I created, just so I'm completely understanding here, I create a Word document, I password protect it. So I need the password, or anybody else needs the password to see what makes up that document. You're telling me that this application blows through that password and reads everything in that document?
If the document itself is password protected, I'm not sure what the Copilot service behind the scenes is going to do with that. It might not be able to read, it might not be able to access the content in a password protected document. I'm unsure of that. Originally, when you asked your question, I thought you were talking about just our normal Azure AD security.
Yeah, no.
Okay, the document itself, if it's password protected, I'm not sure. It's a good question.
Yeah, because if I got documents with PIP information on it, and I don't want anybody to see that stuff unless you're truly authorized, I don't want anybody. No. Let's ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT, can we?
There it goes. So now, based on that context from my business documents, that semantic database that was produced in the background, when I come into Microsoft Word, right away, if I'm creating a new document, I'm going to see Copilot pop up here, and I can start to ask Copilot to generate content for me. I can do the same thing with PowerPoint. So I can start to say, create a 5-slide summary of product XYZ, right? Write me a white paper about this service that we have, right? And so it can start to generate that content. You guys have seen probably demo videos of Copilot in general. But my point here is just the same way that we provided Super Bowl statistics to the service as part of our prompt, Copilot's doing the same thing, right? It's going and getting context and adding that to the prompt so that the large language model has some grounding to be able to work from. And hopefully then it's not making things up. Now, some of the things that we can do in our prompting is say, don't make up information, only respond with the information that you have. We have to tell it to do that, which seems counterintuitive, but that's that is what happens with these models, right? So like I said earlier, I don't know that there's any way to completely eliminate hallucination. I do know that the engineering teams are working on ways to reduce the amount of hallucination, but the best way for us now to be able to do that is providing context within our prompting, provide that grounding within the prompting to try to eliminate that. The other thing to realize is whatever's being generated from AI services has to be reviewed, and you have to fact check it, and you have to do those things. So it can generate content, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the content is complete or correct. So that's the human intervention part. We can save time in the content creation, but it's not an autopilot. Other ways that this capability shows up. Let's do this. So I don't know if you guys have seen this yet or played with it yet or whatever. When I come into Power Apps, I can ask Power Apps to build apps and flows for me. So there's an example that I use, or I've started to use for some of my customer scenarios, and I haven't really done this in front of people yet. So we're going to see what happens here. I can ask Power Apps to build an app for me. So I'm going to say I want an app to perform end of lease vehicle inspections for, I'll say, I don't even need that in there. End of lease inspections for Ford vehicles. Okay. So Copilot's going to come back and it's going to suggest what a table might look like. Another thing that it's going to do is generate some test data for me, right? So it's already generating some data in here. I have an ID column and it's numerically ordering them, and that's all great. It's also looking at the vehicle model, and because I said Ford vehicles, it came back with some specific Ford vehicle models because that's all public information. It knows that I'm probably going to want an inspection date, inspection type, and inspection results. So pass, fail, incomplete, that's all good. Inspection notes. So it gave me a notes field, that's nice. A cost field, okay, that's something new. It didn't do that last time I tried this one. So it created a table, it created some data for me. I might want to say add a summary field. I'll ask Copilot to do that. So it's going to add another column for me, a text column to hold some summary information. And come on. So it updated the table. And here's my summary, and it already dropped in some data there. That's cool. I might want to tell it to add 10 rows. So I want to tell it to generate some more test data for me. So I have a little bit more data in my table. Some of the field types it decided on its own, like inspection notes, it was test. This inspection cost, it set that as currency. So that's all really good. Inspection date type. For the type, it generated a pick list for me, which is kind of cool. What did it do? Inspection type. Release, post lease. Yeah, it didn't give me a whole lot of choices there. And it looks like I can't edit this right now. But after I generate the table, I'll be able to edit that pick list. right now, for some of these things, because this is all still in preview, I can't change column types right here. So what if I said, you know, for this currency, I don't really want that to be currency. I want it to be, maybe I just want it to be a whole number or whatever, right? I can't edit that stuff right now. That's coming. By the time this becomes generally available, I'm told that we'll be able to edit column types and all that good stuff. But then what I'll do here is I'll tell it to create an app. So we've had some templates before in Power Apps that could sort of pre-create apps for us, but you needed to create your own tables under the covers. We had the ability to point Power Apps to a data source like a SharePoint list, an Excel file, a Dataverse table, and ask it to build an app for us. So that's kind of been there for a little while. But what this is really doing is taking just a natural language description of what I want to build and generating the table along with some test data and then creating the app for me, which I think is really pretty cool. The other thing that I think is really cool, and it's going to be really helpful for people with this, is the way that it generates the application, because you'll be able to use this as sort of some templated formatting with containers and all kinds of other good stuff. Because the application it's generating is really good format because of the use of containers. Now, one of the things that's really weird here, though, is I'm not getting any of my data this time. So that's interesting.
Jamie, do you know if they're gonna expand this to be able to build model-driven apps from it as well?
I don't know for sure. But I would imagine so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of
It's the logical next step.
It is, and it's kind of it's almost already there, right? Because once you build the table, then you already have the forms and the views. Now, I know when the default form only has like the primary column and the owner, right? And we still have to go and augment the form, right? So maybe we could be better at that. Being able to use this, I feel like being able to use this to generate the table and have a little bit more control at the time that the AI is suggesting the table.
Mm-hmm.
That gives us a long way there for model-driven apps.
And another question, I know this is adding this to your default solution. Is there a vision where this would be solution aware?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, right now, I did this outside of a solution.
Can you do it within a
I
solution?
was just going to say that. Let me check because I don't know if I tried that. So let me just go back to my solutions. And let me say new app, Canvas app. Because it's preview, yeah, it's just going to take us through the normal experience right now. Because it's in preview.
Yeah, you have to go to make.preview.powerapps.com.
No, but it's only showing up. That capability is only showing up here when
Gotcha.
you're out on the home page in your environment.
Mm-hmm.
Odd that it's not showing me the actual records from the table. Not really sure what's going on there. Maybe because of the search and because there's no text. Maybe that's getting tripped up. So that would have to be fixed. Another thing that I can do, I'm not going to do it in here. I could take an existing app and I can take it that same application, that same table, I can add the Copilot control to a screen in my application. And then I start to be able to ask questions of the data that's in my application. So in this case, on this screen, I added a Copilot control that is connected to my accounts table. I have a Copilot control that is connected to a custom table, right? And I can start asking questions. And the other interesting thing here is it has the Copilot control has some context about the data that from the table that we connected it to. So it's able to suggest relevant questions that we can start to ask about the data in that table.
So you could create that and then use that as a custom page in a model-driven app, right?
Yeah,
That would be cool.
yeah, for sure. So it knows some things like my custom table, it knows that there's 3 events in that table, right? So this is adding the Copilot control to your app after the fact. What else here around Copilot in Power Platform? We could do some things like, you guys have probably already seen the ability to describe it to design it, right? So even when I'm here in my application and I want to say new Cloudflow. So again, being in preview, it's doing the same thing that we talked about before. So I say this.
So time flies when we're having fun. We're 6 minutes over.
Oh,
So people are starting to say thank you.
cool.
Goodbye.
Sorry, guys.
I
Sorry.
told
Awesome.
Mark
I
I'd
had
be
no
back
idea.
online at 1 o'clock, and it's an hour drive back to the house, so it's 12:30, grab lunch and get back online.
Yeah, all good, man. Totally lost track of time.
So did I. This is amazing stuff.
Have a great holiday weekend.
Can I just miss the best part? Clients, oh, I get on your nerves sometimes. You guys-
I'll have this recording. I'll post it in our group too.
Okay, I'm sorry I had to leave, but I had to take that 11 o'clock.
No worries, no worries. Have you seen the describe it to design it stuff?
Yeah, I
in
love that.
Power Automate?
Yeah.
So that's there. And then the other cool thing is for chatbots. So now when you create a chatbot, and you may have already seen this. When you create a chatbot,
I heard the hype. You can make a chatbot in 3 minutes. I didn't believe it. And I did it. I recorded my creation. It took like a minute and a half to build a chatbot, pointing it to a URL. It's absolutely amazing.
It's off the rails because when you start creating the bot, you can point it to your own content. As long as that content is indexed, you can use that. You don't have to create all the different topics. Very cool.
Yeah, I made a chatbot to find hiking trails. In
Oh,
real,
awesome.
like no time at all. Just
Very
pointed it to
cool.
alltrails.com.
Yeah, very
Fabulous.
cool, very cool.
I'm trying to get a client to move from, their data is in Smartsheet.
Yikes.
I'm trying to get them to move to Power Apps. I'll probably have another 3 or 4 months of selling it. They're using Power BI as the way to aggregate all of the Smartsheet information and then link over to the Smartsheet if they need to make edits. The help that we're trying to build is just grueling because it's all links to either a Power BI page with some rudimentary images on it. Can I do this for a Power BI page, this chat box in the Power BI service? If I build the content?
Is that all the fabric stuff now?
So if the Smartsheet data is what's underlying your Power BI reports,
6 times a day up refreshes.
So let me take a step back. There is Copilot capability that is available in Power BI. I think it's still in preview though. And that gives you the ability to use natural language constructs to even create your Power BI reports. There's already natural language capability in Power BI to sort of allow you to query the data using natural language. So I forget the term, but it's like
Yeah, Belinda showed us that.
question.
There's that little thing that comes up and you can type into a QA or something.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So that capability is already there in Power BI. I'm not sure what the chatbot is going to give you unless you wanted to use that
Help, that was
for
it.
the help capability.
That was it.
And so if you've already written your help information, you should be able to use that as a data source for the chatbot.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. But it's all preview and they haven't released how they'll price it or anything
Oh.
like that.
It is preview,
Okay.
but I think it would be something along the lines. I create a new chatbot here. So right now, you can point it to your website. Like if I wanted to go to Ford.com, and I click create, I'll be able to start asking questions about like Ford information, and it's going to be able to answer them. And I didn't have to create any topics. So I think you could do the same type of thing with your help information.
Yeah, on the next screen, you can, or maybe it's a coming soon, you can put documents in there and it starts to learn from the documents as well.
Yeah,
It's-
exactly.
But this isn't preview. This is already out there, right?
That's pretty.
Oh, this is preview. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's still in preview. So let it create a bot. Skip on this one. Since this is already created, we won't waste a lot of time. There's a new action that's available called generative answers. So if I have custom topics, let's take this one. Example. So in my topic, I can do things here with generative answers. So I could have a question and then add an action that allows me to provide specific data sources to be able to answer those questions, right? So this is relatively new. I'm totally honest with you. I haven't played with this much yet. It's like a couple weeks, maybe a month old.
Oh, okay.
Last time I was here, it was just coming soon. So.
Yeah, it's still
That's
in
cool.
period, right? And unfortunately for us here at the MTC, we're not as embedded with the engineering teams as we would like to be sometimes. So yeah, for me, I just got my hands on this less than a month ago. So those are the kinds of things that you'll be able to start to point your topics and certain questions to your content, and then allow the bot to generate answers from that.
Wow. I can even go back and curate some of those PowerPoint and Word documents.
Yeah,
Don't even have to rewrite anything.
right, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, this is nice.